Welcome back to Finance House, where we uncover the stories hidden behind the world's money. Today, we're diving deep into a tale so audacious, so daring, it sounds like something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. But this isn't fiction. This is the story of the Great Gold Heist of 1963, a conspiracy that reached from the gritty underworld of London all the way to the highest echelons of international finance. Imagine this: the Bank of England, a fortress of finance, the very symbol of British economic stability. Its vaults, buried deep beneath the streets of London, were thought to be impenetrable, holding a nation's wealth in glittering gold bars. To even think of robbing it was madness. To attempt it? Unthinkable. Yet, in 1963, a shadowy group of criminals decided to do just that. This wasn't your typical smash-and-grab job. This was a sophisticated operation, a symphony of crime orchestrated by minds that understood not just brute force, but the subtle weaknesses within the system itself. The plot began as whispers in the dimly lit pubs and back alleys of London's East End, the traditional stomping ground for the city's most notorious gangs. But these whispers carried a different weight. They spoke of a prize so immense it could change the landscape of organized crime forever. Gold, straight from the source. The masterminds knew they couldn't breach the Bank of England's defenses from the outside. The walls were too thick, the security too tight. The only way in was to have someone on the inside. Their first move was to identify and corrupt a key insider. Someone with access, knowledge, and a price. This is where the story takes its first dark turn, from a simple crime to a complex conspiracy. They needed a ghost, an employee who could move through the bank's corridors unnoticed, a person whose loyalty could be bought. Finding this individual was the first piece of the puzzle, and it required patience, meticulous planning, and a deep understanding of human weakness. Once their inside man was in place, the plan began to take shape. It was brilliant in its simplicity. They wouldn't blast their way in. They would use the bank's own procedures against it. The plan involved manipulating paperwork, forging documents, and exploiting the trust inherent in the financial system. The gold wasn't going to be stolen in the dead of night. It was going to be moved in broad daylight under the very noses of the guards, signed, sealed, and delivered by the bank itself. But this operation was too big for a local crew. The scale of the theft and the logistics of moving and laundering that much gold required international connections. This is where the Mafia enters the picture. The whispers from London crossed the Atlantic, reaching the ears of powerful crime families in America. These organizations had the resources, the network, and the audacity to pull off something of this magnitude. They saw the potential not just for a massive payday, but for a new frontier in financial crime. The Mafia brought more than just muscle. They brought expertise. They had specialists in money laundering, international shipping, and most importantly, discipline. They transformed a high-stakes robbery into a multinational business venture. Secret financiers were brought on board. Shadowy figures who operated in the legitimate world of banking but had allegiances to the underworld. They provided the capital needed to fund the operation, bribes, equipment, and safe houses, in exchange for a cut of the final prize. The web of conspiracy grew, connecting London gangsters, American mafiosi, and corrupt officials. It was a testament to the invisible connections that can form between organized crime and the financial elite. They were using the very tools of global finance, wire transfers, shell corporations, and offshore accounts, to plan the biggest heist the world had ever seen. The same systems designed to move legitimate money around the globe were now being hijacked to facilitate a crime of epic proportions. As the day of the heist approached, the tension was palpable. Every detail was scrutinized, every contingency planned for. The team was a collection of specialists: the inside man, the forgers, the drivers, the enforcers. Each had a role to play in this complex ballet of criminality. The plan relied on perfect timing and flawless execution. A single mistake, a single moment of hesitation, and the entire house of cards would come crashing down. The execution was nearly perfect. The forged documents were submitted, the internal processes were manipulated, and the gold bars were loaded onto a secure transport vehicle, seemingly as part of a routine transfer. It was a ghost operation. The gold left the Bank of England without a single alarm being raised. For a few precious hours, the criminals were victorious. They had achieved the impossible. But the glamour of gold and gangsters often conceals a harsher reality. A heist of this magnitude doesn't just disappear. The moment the discrepancy was discovered, a firestorm erupted. Scotland Yard launched one of the largest investigations in its history. The international intelligence community was mobilized. The underworld was buzzing. The criminals had the gold, but now they faced an even greater challenge: how to turn solid gold bars into untraceable cash without getting caught. This is where the story shifts from a heist to a manhunt. The pressure from law enforcement was immense. The alliance between the different criminal factions began to fracture under the strain. Greed and paranoia, the two constants in the world of crime, started to set in. The very thing that brought them together, the gold, now threatened to tear them apart. Betrayals became inevitable as members of the crew began to look for ways to save themselves. The investigation uncovered a trail that led investigators through the murky depths of international finance. They followed the money, peeling back layers of shell companies and secret bank accounts, revealing the shocking extent of the conspiracy. It became clear that this was more than just a robbery. It was an attack on the integrity of the financial system itself. The case exposed how criminal empires were becoming more sophisticated, infiltrating the legitimate world and using its own instruments for their illicit gains. Ultimately, the law caught up with many of those involved. Arrests were made and some of the gold was recovered. But the story doesn't end there. The Great Gold Heist of 1963 left a lasting legacy. It served as a wake-up call for banks and governments around the world. It forced them to reevaluate their security procedures, not just the physical locks and guards, but the internal controls and digital systems that were becoming increasingly important. The heist revealed a deeper truth. The lines between the criminal underworld and the world of high finance are not always as clear as we'd like to believe. Power, greed, and opportunity can create strange bedfellows. This tale isn't just about stolen gold, it's about the vulnerabilities that exist within the systems we trust most. It is a powerful reminder that even the most secure institutions are only as strong as the people who run them. Here at Finance House, we believe that understanding these stories is crucial. They show us how financial systems can be exploited, and in doing so, teach us how to better protect them. The Great Gold Heist of 1963 is a dark chapter in financial history, but it's one that holds valuable lessons that are still relevant today. Thank you for joining us on this journey into one of money's darkest secrets. If you found this story as fascinating as we did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to Finance House for more deep dives into the world of finance. We'll see you in the next video.